let's jump in now. People will join us hopefully. Um, I don't know where to be. I've got several things I want to ask you about. Let me ask you about this.
Yeah.
So Bill Maher, and I saw you posted about this, but Bill Maher on Real Time apparently went to the White House, visited with Donald Trump something like 10 days ago. He comes back on HBO Friday night and talks about it. There was a little pushback from Josh Rogan, one of the guests on the show, but I think the internet more than the panel discussion kind of turned on Bill Maher. And there's this sense because basically what Bill Maher said was, look, Trump was awesome in person. He seemed very smart, very nice, totally different. And look, I'm not saying that matters, but for what it's worth, Trump has the capacity to be like a thoughtful, decent person. And I think Bill Maher got a lot of grief for that, for saying that much. And I wanted to get your take as someone who, you've traveled some different roads to get where you are today.
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
Matt, I find it, Matt, to be such a fascinating topic because you're right. Like, I used to be a really divisive political ass, and I've spent the last 7 years trying to help heal that divide. So I'll sit down with damn near anybody to try to have a respectful conversation. But Matt, I draw the line at Trump. I will never sit down with Trump. I think Donald Trump is an existential threat to this democracy. I think he lies every time he opens his mouth. Right now, he's trying to expel people based on what they believe. Right now, so I draw a big line between Trump and Trump supporters. I even draw a line between Trump and his media idiotic sycophants. Like, I'd sit down with Sean Hannity. But Donald Trump, Matt, in my mind, has declared open war on what this country is. So to sit down with him, like I wouldn't sit down with Putin until he
Yeah.
got the hell out of Ukraine. Um, uh, I get what Bill was trying to do. The second point I'd make, Matt, is I don't care what Trump is like in private. I don't. And I don't think Donald Trump has a thoughtful bone in his body. But to say that, like, Putin's a funny guy in private, and again, maybe people back in the day said Hitler was charming, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? So all Bill Maher did was just normalize Trump. And I think Bill Maher's been like bending over to try to be almost like MAGA adjacent, weirdly.
His argument, I believe, was um, it's good to know that Trump isn't actually crazy, that it's a sane person who's playing a crazy person, which is, Bill would say, slightly better than Trump actually being out and out crazy. Does
But
that give
but
you
but
any
but but
comfort?
No, that's actually interesting, Matt. So I don't agree with that because if you were sitting down with Donald Trump in private, I don't know how you feel about this answer. If I were, I wouldn't believe a word he said. Like, and Bill Maher's a smart guy. I've been on the show a few times. Bill Maher's no dummy. How could you sit down with Donald Trump and believe anything he said to you privately? That's point number one. But point number two, so he'll go out and give a speech tomorrow night, Trump will, and he'll say again he won the 2020 election. Okay, so if he says that again publicly, I don't give a fuck what he says privately. Then it doesn't matter to me. So to me, it's like there's no win either way.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's not just Bill Maher. I mean, we've seen other people who have done this. And the recently Gretchen Whitmer, big Gretch is she's in the Oval Office and she's like, I'm not here, nothing to see here. I mean, look, you tell me, but I think that image of her, which is in the New York Times, is game. That's her. I mean, we talk about, Dukakis in the tank with the helmet. I think that's it. I think it's game over for her aspirations based on that photo alone, fair or not. But what do you make of it?
Oh, Matt, I haven't said it like that. I'm glad you said it like that. That's 100 times worse than Dukakis in the tank. You are right, and you're the first one I've heard say that's game over for her in 28. And that's a really weird thing to say about one
Yeah.
photo from last week, but you're right. You're right. And again, like she shouldn't have been there. For no reason should she have been there. But then, Matt, like, be savvy enough if you're there, know that a picture of you trying to cover yourself up is worse than just a picture of you there. What would have been going through her mind?
It's unbelievable. It's so bad. So bad. The
I,
optics are so bad.
I'm
It's
so
so bad.
Matt Lewis. I'm so glad you said that. It is so bad because it's like she screamed to the world last week. I'm not ready for prime time.
No. It's so weird how politicians, even people who we think are ready for prime time, who have been through elections and fairly high profile, meet the press interviews or whatever, there are moments when they show themselves and expose them that they are not ready for prime time. And that image, because she's in the White House to try to talk to Trump to get something for Michigan, which I can totally respect that you would want to do that as a governor. Trump kind of sandbags her, I think, by
Yes,
what this is what he does to people.
yes,
He uses
yes,
her and starts signing these. Was this when he was signing these orders to target Chris Krebs and Miles Taylor?
yes. She
Was
was
that?
in the Oval when he was signing those two executive orders, going after two of his political opponents.
Yep.
So that's another interesting point, Matt. If you're standing there and Gretchen, if you're Gretchen and you're standing there and you're caught and you're stuck, but then he starts talking about these two executive orders,
Yeah.
ordering the Justice Department to go after two of his opponents. I get the fuck out of the Oval Office immediately. Gone.
Yeah. You storm out and hold a press conference and
Thank
condemn it. Right. That's what you should do.
yes.
But that requires that I don't know what the quote about Napoleon is, but that 3 o'clock in the morning kind of courage. But what she did, I think, was really try to hide and make sure she wasn't photographed being there. That's what it seems like anyway. Maybe there's more to the story that I don't know, but it is just really the worst of both worlds. Trump totally played her,
And
and
I think tell me what you think about this, Matt. To me it goes to the bigger problem. I've got a really good friend who lives in Pennsylvania, and he and I got into it over the weekend talking about this. And so then he took it further. He said, okay, Joe, let's say you're a United States Senator from Pennsylvania, you're a Democrat, and Trump invited you to the White House to talk about whatever. Would you go? And he said, of course, he said he'd go if he were a senator. I said, no. If I were a Democratic senator from any state in this country, and I had been saying that that man's an existential threat to my democracy, and look at what he's been doing for 3 months, I'm not going to go into his office to talk about tariffs or anything. I,
yeah,
and
it's
and I
mixed. It's
think
really mixed messages, isn't it? And you can't. It's like two tracks. You can either he's a normal politician. I'm here to, I'll talk to anybody. I'm here to try to make deals. Or he is an existential threat who is trying to, who's joking about staying on for a third term, who tried to stop the free and fair election, who basically is disappearing immigrants into an El Salvador dungeon. And if that's the case, then I don't know if we have a lot of room to talk,
I don't look. I don't think we do. And Matt, so I was part of Republicans for Harris, and for 3 months, I every day, former Tea Party Joe Walsh was in one battleground state after another campaigning for her. And I would say every day, he's an existential threat to our democracy. He's a fascist. Kamala Harris said that. Joe Biden said that. Most Democrats said that. Okay, so then he wins. We're all Americans, so unlike Trump, we accept the results of the election. He won fair and square. But that's it. Then I believe he's a fascist. So if I'm Joe Biden, Matt, I don't invite Trump to the White House. If I'm Kamala Harris, I don't go to his inauguration. I respect the American people. They voted for him. But but if you say this guy is who he is, and then you try to normalize him, Joe Biden, for the sake of the institution, I just think this sends mixed messages to Democratic voters and to people who agree with us
Yeah.
that he's an existential threat.
I agree with you. And I understand the plight that Democrats face, right? Because if you're saying that you care about norms, you care about institutions, well, the norms say you should invite a past president to an inauguration or whatever. You should have that meeting with them where you talk to them in front of the cameras before handing over, uh, the presidency. But if you truly believe that he is a threat to liberal democracy, then you wouldn't behave that way, right? And so I get why I get that it's tough for Democrats, but they need to settle. They kind of need to settle. And when you don't actually have that conversation, you end up being Gretchen Whitmer. I think that's what
Well,
happens.
yeah, and I wonder, Matt, you're a smart political brain. Can the Democrats settle on something? John Fetterman, who's really kind of been an all-star as far as I'm concerned, but then a month and a half ago, he ran down to Mar-a-Lago. So I want to believe that Fetterman doesn't believe Trump is a threat to our democracy, or would Fetterman go down there now to Mar-a-Lago? I would hope not.
Well, there was, remember what's his name? At the New York Times wrote a column right after Trump won, basically saying, "I'm not a never Trumper anymore." This is something to that
Yeah.
effect, and we have to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. And I do think that I kind of disagreed with that. I thought, look, hey, there is some potential upside of the Trump presidency, but it's far outweighed by the what we know is going to be the downside. But the idea that things were going to be great and that he was going to be a kinder, gentler Trump was absurd. But look, I'll give a little grace to people who initially thought, let's shake the etch a sketch and have a reset. But that like Trump like blew that away in a week, right?
In a
So
week.
at this point, I think it's so naive uh, to do that. And I have to wonder though. I think that there's like almost a perverse incentive that like everybody in the Democratic Party is jockeying to
Yeah.
have a certain angle or position. So if you can be the guy who says, all of you're clutching at pearls and but I'm the guy who can go down to Mar-a-Lago. And
Yeah.
you can even frame it as being courageous in a weird sort of way too, right? So maybe there's a perverse incentive to play ball with Trump.
Well, and smart, Matt, because that's how Fetterman presented it. And Fetterman said, Democrats, quit clutching your pearls. All this threat to democracy stuff didn't win us the election. Now, I disagree with Fetterman, but I think that's what he thinks. I got to tell you, Matt, again, to Bill Maher, I would never sit down with Trump in private without the cameras rolling. I couldn't, because I couldn't believe anything he said. And all I'd want to do is ask him, did you win the 2020 election? Did you win the 2020? Did you win until he gave me a straight answer?
Yeah.
I just don't, I just
Well,
don't.
and Bill Maher said that in private, he sort of made a joke about Trump losing 2020, or maybe Trump said, "Yeah, we lost 2020," but of course the cameras aren't on, so does it even matter? I'd love to hear him admit, although he has sort of admitted it once or twice on camera. Maybe he slipped up, but yeah, I totally hear what you're saying.
No,
Um,
but your broader point is this, that I get it. The Democrats are struggling. Donald Trump's numbers aren't great, but they're not dropping. The Democrats' brand is in the toilet. They've got real problems, which kind of helps buoy Trump. It's a tough time for Democrats.
yeah, and then you have Gavin Newsom playing that same game. I think. What advice would you have if you could, speak to Democrats? Um, like you said that you were helping out with Kamala Harris. Like, let's say that there was a meeting and they actually wanted you to present. Because I honestly think listening to some never Trump conservatives, I'm not saying that they have to. It has to be 100%. They take your advice, but honestly, they could do a lot worse. What would you tell them?
And you know, because you and I've known each other a long time, I'm a unique never Trumper. I come from MAGA. I voted for him in 16. I come from the bowels of the MAGA base. I'm a reformed MAGA gangbanger. So I have a very unusual perspective. But what I would tell Democrats is what I try to say publicly to them. Matt, everywhere I went in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and elsewhere, campaigning for her, when I heard from regular people in the middle, not people like you and me, um, they would always give me a variation of, "Hey Joe, I know Trump's an asshole, but the Democrats suck. But the Democrats look down on me. The Democrats are elitist." Everywhere I went, I heard this. "Yeah, Joe, Trump's an ass, but the Democrats look down on me." Um, I'm a populist, not an evil populist, a good populist, but we're living in a populist moment. Trump, in my mind, is an evil populist, Matt, but the Democrats have never recognized this moment. They live in their MSNBC ivory towers. They need to fight. They've lost touch with regular people. They need to fucking fight. I don't care if the fighter is a leftist fighter or a moderate fighter. They need to fight. They need to connect to regular people again and fight for regular people.
Is there anyone? Is it Bernie? Is it AOC? Is it Stephen A. Smith? Is it The Rock? Is it Josh Shapiro, who got, bless him, is
Yeah.
came apparently the guy who burned, set fire to the governor's mansion of Pennsylvania, wanted to go at him with a hammer. Who is it? If you had is there anybody out there on the horizon that you think has the gravitas and toughness and charisma to do this?
No. Short answer, no.
Mm,
And it scares me. Bernie, 20 years ago, maybe.
yes.
I don't see it. I don't think AOC has that gravitas yet. Maybe a centrist fighter, a centrist populist is an oxymoron, but I don't see that. I don't see a Democrat one of those. Sherrod Brown, former Ohio senator, was one of those. Um, my God, Matt, this is how freaking crazy these times are. I've thought about becoming a Democrat just to help teach the Democrats how to fight. Um, I don't see that name out there. The other thing I'll throw in, Matt, is authenticity. Um,
Yes.
Trump's brilliance is he's fooled everybody into thinking he's some authentic thing. Bullshit. But voters are looking for authentic. I don't want to hear somebody that sounds like a fucking talking point
Yeah.
or a rehearsed speech. Give me somebody authentic. Do
Yeah.
you see that?
No, I totally agree with you, and that's why I think Um, Pete Buttigieg is a great politician, but we don't need politicians. Even Josh Shapiro, who I like a lot, is a politician. Gretchen Whitmer is a politician. Bernie doesn't seem like a politician. He's been in office for a million years, but he doesn't feel like one. But and honestly, Fetterman, if he hadn't had the stroke, I think Fetterman maybe could have been that guy. But you and I are on the exact same page. Authenticity, toughness. I think also, speaking of toughness, I
Huh?
think that thanks to Trump, we have entered a machismo era where you also
Yeah.
have to be like manly for now. Maybe it'll change down the road, but so I don't know who that person is. But then again, the one comfort is nobody would have thought in 2013 that Donald Trump was going to be the next nominee, let alone president.
Matt, you're spot on. Buttigieg is brilliant. Shapiro's brilliant, but they sound like machines. They sound like, right? They're just reading brilliant talking points in speeches. When they speak, I want to like shake up their hair and say, "What? Tell me what you mean." It's amazing, Matt, that because we've been in this populist moment now, really. I mean, since just before 16. But Bernie, like I always say, Bernie would have beaten Trump in 16. But Bernie was that outside populist. Hillary was
Yep.
the prototype for the establishment politician. And in the last 8, 9 years, there's not been that authentic fight and voice on the Democratic side.
Do you remember the guy? I can't remember his name, but how quickly they forget. He was Stormy Daniels' lawyer, and he did a million
Yeah,
TV hits.
Yeah.
And what's his name? The guy who used to Brian, the guy who used to host that CNN show, Reliable Sources. Got dragged because he said that this guy, the lawyer, the Stormy, I don't know anybody's name, but the Stormy Daniels lawyer, maybe.
Yeah.
Can people comment on this? Can they ask questions or
I
comment? I
remember
don't know.
a bald guy.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
a big name. Yeah.
And so whoever said he should run for president got dragged because it became absurd because the guy like ended up going to jail or getting arrested or something. But I get it. That guy was tough and mean and nasty. And again, it ended up being you. If you were saying he should be the candidate, you look stupid.
Avenatti,
But
Michael Avenatti. Thank you, guys. Thank you,
thank
King.
you. The
Thank you, King.
wisdom of the crowds. Michael Avenatti. It, not a horrible idea, actually. If it hadn't been the fact that he was like very skeevy and sketchy.
Well, and Matt, again, to go back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, like if I were the governor of Michigan last week and I'm a Democrat and I find myself in the White House and I listen to what's going on, like you, I would have fucking raised a storm. I would have yelled at the president. I would have stormed out of the White House. I would have held a press conference. I'd have raised hell. What an opportunity that would have been for authenticity. And instead, Big Gretch became a politician. My kingdom for an authentic fighting Democrat. That's what we need.
Hmm. That is courage. It's on the fly making the decision. I'm going to flip the script. I'm not going to stand for this instead of hiding and hoping it goes away and hoping nobody notices. But I think that was her moment, right? She could have done something great that would have gotten a ton of attention, or she could have sort of melted. And I think that was a defining moment for her. And I'm not saying it's fair, but you can't plan for when your moment's going to come. You either rise to the occasion or you shrink. And I think she shrunk. Maybe I'm being hard on her, but it doesn't matter what I say. She's, stick a fork in her. She's done.
Well, yeah, and for everybody jumping on Matt Lewis, I'm going to defend Matt Lewis. I'm going to defend Matt Lewis because, Matt, you got me thinking that moment really was that profound that I think she's done in 28 because of that. That was that
Yes.
important.
I mean, could you imagine, look, in the era now of Twitter memes and
Forget it.
yeah, it's the commercials write themselves. Um, these are serious times, as you alluded to in your opening remarks, Joe. I want to talk a little bit. So there was a 9-0 Supreme Court decision saying that the Trump administration had to return this Maryland man who the White House admitted they wrongly deported to El Salvador, where he's being held in what looks to be essentially a gulag with
Yeah.
gang members who actually we know want to kill him. And now the president of El Salvador, who was in the White House today, not wearing a necktie, by the way,
Yeah.
um, he says we can't send him back. We're not sending him back. And Trump's like, nothing I can do, right? I mean, could you imagine some penny ante dictator telling Donald Trump that he's not going to do something Trump wanted him to do? Um, but I guess this is going to be the president of the United States defying a unanimous Supreme Court decision, and I don't know where that leads us, Joe. But it's certainly not good.
So it's so interesting, Matt. As a former congressman, I've been saying from the day Trump got sworn in that we're in a constitutional crisis. And I said that right away only because, and I wasn't trying to be provocative, my branch, the legislative branch, is no longer an independent branch. We only have two independent branches of government now. We need people to really understand that. We do not have an independent legislative branch. So we've always been in a in a constitutional crisis as far as I'm concerned. But most people would go where you just went, that when Trump does formally defy the court order, ding, 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 that's the constitutional crisis. And so, again, we're there. The Supreme Court has told them to. Um, the beauty of Trump Matt, my friend, is this: he's so bad and so corrupt in real time, he's forcing us to decide what kind of people we want to be. And the president of the United States knows that a wrongly put man is in an El Salvador jail. Forget about what the court says. Like, you don't want to bring an innocent man back up here? Great for his base. But again, Matt, if I'm a Democrat, it's all I'm screaming about.
Yeah. Now, as you know, Joe, for a long time, the United States of America, which I do believe is a great country, and a force for good in the world, at least until recently, but generally speaking, uh, a shining city on a hill. But we've done some bad stuff in our past, and if you were, if you were a white person, things were pretty good. But certainly during, well, slavery and Jim Crow, we certainly fell short of our standards. So one way of looking at what's happening now would be we're returning to that era, where if you're a white citizen, you may be okay. If you're not, things things could be rough. Joe, another way of looking at this is first they came for the gay Venezuelan hairdressers, then they came for you. Donald Trump has called people like you and me human scum,
Yeah.
uh, vermin, things like that. Do you fear that what we are seeing is a warm up to targeting, people in the media, journalists, politicians, or is this just going to be what happens to immigrants?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think it's cruelty and it's authoritarianism. The cruelty is Donald Trump is purposely trying to scare any potential immigrant from even thinking about coming here from coming here. So he'll keep innocent people in that El Salvador jail. He'll say, like he said today, you know what? We'll even put homegrown people in that jail. He's trying to scare the piss out of immigrants because he doesn't want anybody knocking on our door. But I know as well that this is the first step toward him wanting to imprison his political opponents. Um, Look, I'm not his greatest political opponent, but I've always been scared. I mean, Matt, from the moment I came out against Trump 7, 8 years ago, I've put up with threats and hate, and I know he's got a list. Trump does, of his political enemies. I know who's on that list, and I also do believe that he'd love to, if possible, go after. I mean, we become so dumbed and numb to this. You alluded to it last week. Trump ordered the Justice
Yeah.
Department to investigate two of his political opponents. So he's down that road, and I think
And
there's
by
going to
the
be more.
way, their crime,
Yeah,
their crime was doing their job and telling the truth. I mean, he is having them investigated, especially Krebs, as far as I could tell, investigated for saying the 2020 election was
yeah,
fairly decided.
yeah.
Uh, and so you're talking about sending a message, Joe? Think of the message, the chilling effect, the message that sends to anyone working in the administration today. It's like
And
we will go after you for being a traitor, not to me, not to our political campaign, but to the United States of America if you say something that doesn't align with our political ideology.
the chilling message is working. Look at how he's changed the way certain media outlets do what they do. Look at what he's done to law firms and how law firms have gotten down on their knees.
Yep.
So he's already these threats of his are working right now.
You know what and we have to find humor where we can find it in times like these, Joe. You know what I think might be a fun little game we could play is at what you mentioned that you're not at the top of the list of people
Yeah.
that Trump would. I think I'm below you on the list.
You're
So
on that list, Matt Lewis.
but I think the game is who's the person that if they disappear, I move to Canada? Is it Joe Walsh? If Joe Walsh disappears, that's when I know I gotta leave. Is it uh you know Joe Scarborough? There's somebody on the list. Maybe it's Jonah Goldberg, but there's somebody that if God forbid they should go to Guantanamo Bay, you hit the door. Who's your person that if something befalls them, if they decide to jump off of a tall building, that it's time to get out of Dodge.
Son of a gun, Matt. That's a really interesting. That's a really interesting question.
It's
Um,
very morbid. It's really
no,
morbid. It's more
but
morbid than kill Mary or
well, and it's also good for me because I need to laugh more. I get too fucking pissed off. I think, and again, I think that if I saw a former member gone after, and again, Liz Cheney is higher up on the list than me, obviously, but if he is literally able to go after her, then I'd worry about any former elected
yeah.
for
Well,
Republicans who've spoken out against him.
did you see this, Joe? I think this is true, although it sounds so absurd that maybe it's satire that I'm falling for. But apparently, Greg Gutfeld and Fox News have pitched a reality show where they take people and they sequester them in a house where they can't watch the news for like 3 months. And then they show them headlines, okay? And they have to guess which news headlines are real versus fake.
Oh
And the
wow.
reason I bring this up, number one, I think it's a tacit admission by Fox News that their dear leader is, you know, doing some crazy stuff that's really unimaginable. But if I had told you, I don't know what year, if I told you in 2015 that in the few 10 years from now, Liz Cheney will be seen as a left wing, enemy number one of a Republican administration. Like, there's no scenario where you would have believed me. Liz Cheney, the daughter of Darth Vader,
Yeah.
who was on Fox all the time. She used to be on the Fox News Special Report, as a hawk. Um, so anyway, I don't know if
Yeah.
I choose to believe that Fox show is real, but who knows?
That's a fascinating concept. Yeah, and look, we forget Liz Cheney and my friend and former colleague Adam Kinzinger. They turned against Trump after Jan 6th. They campaigned for Trump in 2020
For
um,
re-election, not
for
just election,
re-election.
re-election.
Like Matt, I was slow. You were principled, never Trumper from the jump. Correct? Thank you.
Yeah,
You
I
and
was,
so many others.
and
I
it's funny though. Even Bill, did you know? Do you remember this? Even Bill Kristol originally was, let's give him a chance.
I don't
Now
remember that.
he flipped
Really?
before the judge. Yeah, but I was even before I was anti-Trump when Bill Kristol was like, maybe he's got some good ideas. This is early on. Early
You
on.
were you're on that original list. You're one of the
OG.
original. I
OG. Yeah.
I voted for him in 16 and then turned against him within a year or two. But my red line, Matt, has always been if you watch this guy for president for 4 years and you still support him, then I can never support you as a Republican. So
Yeah.
yeah, like Chris Christie still campaigned and voted for him in 20. Um, but
There's
to
some
your other,
there's some comedian I saw that's like, uh, I was down for the racism. I was with him for the Muslim ban. I was cool with Stormy Daniels, but now these damn tariffs have gone too far. Now he's crossed the line with the tariffs.
we there's always been a failure of imagination with Trump. We've never imagined how bad he'd get, how far he'd go. If you and I were sitting down 20 years ago, Matt, I don't think either one of us would believe that there was going to be an American president who lost an election and refused to accept the result and then tried to overthrow the result. I would have said you're crazy if you told me that 20, 30 years ago. So
And
I,
then
I
and then the party goes along with him.
and
That's the part that
and
that's
then
the part that blows me away.
The party goes along and then nominates him, and now he's more popular than ever. I only say that to say that I don't know that there are going to be midterms in 2026. I don't know that
Mhm.
Trump won't try to run again in 28. Maybe I sound crazy, but let's use our imagination and prepare for the worst.
Well, I don't think it's crazy. He's joking about it. He likes to joke
Yeah.
about things to normalize them before he actually gets around to
Yeah.
trying them. I
Yes.
saw that same Real Time with Bill Maher episode. His main guest was Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon.
And Steve Bannon said, we're going to, he's going to be president in 2029 or whatever it was. So they're serious about this. Joe, I know I got to get you out of here. And I thank you for being here. And
It's been fun.
I like to say thank you because I saw what happens when you don't say thank you to President Zelensky. And I thank the audience for sticking with me through my technical difficulties as well. And we're going to learn how to do this and all that. But point well taken. We don't know what the future holds. We don't even know if there will be midterms. But I take a little solace in the fact that the economy and the stock market has reacted negatively to the tariffs. Now, look, I don't want to root against America, and I sure as hell don't want to root against my own 401k. But
Yeah.
I do feel like if Trump were managing things better, he would actually be in a better position to seize power. But he is losing popularity. And I think these tariffs are doing serious damage that are going to make it, I would hope, harder for him to have the kind of popularity he would need to seize power and in some sort of emergency. Of course, it will have to be an emergency where, uh, you
Yeah.
know, the president has to step in for our own good, right?
I I think you're spot on. Trump lies about everything. He can lie about January 6th, and his voters are fine with it. He can lie about immigrants and crime rates and transgenders, and they're eating cats and dogs, and people are okay. But you can't lie about the economy because we live it. So Trump can't stand up and say your 401k is doing great when it's not. Your job is awesome when you've lost it. So to your point, Matt, Trump can't lie about the economy because we live the economy. Um, so I think that's right. In the few conversations I've had with Republican members of the House, this tariff issue politically scares the shit out of them. To the exact point that you just.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you, Joe Walsh. Let's plug some stuff. If you're not already following Joe on Substack and you're following me, Mission One, make sure to subscribe to his Substack.
By the way, both. Everybody who's listening right now who follows and subscribes to me, follow and subscribe to Matt Lewis right now. Do it. That's in order.
Thank you, my friend. That's the kind of clarity that Gretchen Whitmer was missing. Rising to the occasion, just like that. Joe
Thank
Walsh,
you, Matt
always.
Lewis. Keep kicking
Thank
butt,
you.
my friend. Thank you.
You got it, my friend. Thank you. God bless. And we'll talk soon, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.